Who will survive, and what will be left of them? This is one of the most famous taglines ever conceived, and it belongs to one of the most iconic horror movies ever created.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Whether you're a longtime fan or even new to the genre, this movie has left a lasting impact on the world of horror. Many of the horror movies released since 1974 have tried to create the same dread and grungy look and feel of this classic, but none have ever come close. Directed by Tobe Hooper and co-written with Kim Henkel, the film was inspired by the real-life crimes of Ed Gein. While Gein wasn't a chainsaw-wielding maniac, his gruesome acts, like making furniture out of human remains, helped shape the terrifying character of Leatherface. The story of Ed Gein has been instrumental in the creation of many modern horror icons, such as Norman Bates from Psycho, Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs, and even Steve Buscemi's character in Con Air, Garland Green. Each one of these characters have taken something from Ed Gein, but Leatherface has taken the most, be it the wearing of human skin of his victims, right down to making furniture made out of human bone. Hooper originally envisioned the film as a critique of the political climate and the unsettling atmosphere of America in the early 70s, particularly the Vietnam War. Again, the Vietnam War influencing another movie director to make a horror movie. Hooper has stated, "The lack of sentimentality and the brutality of things that I saw on the local news, whose graphic coverage was epitomized by showing brains spilled all over the road." This led to Hooper's belief that man was the real monster here, just wearing a different face, so I put a literal mask on the monster in my film. Even though the majority of the characters, the setting, and the unsettling violence, the chainsaw only came into play when Tobe Hooper was in a slow-moving crowd at Christmas time and he was thinking of how to speed his way through the crowd, and that's when he spotted chainsaws on sale. Now let's talk about the story to Tobe Hooper's Nightmare. The plot is deceptively simple. A group of friends traveling through a rural town and stumbling upon a family of cannibals, which has become the plot for nearly every single road trip horror movie that has come out since. But what sets Texas Chainsaw apart from every other horror movie? The execution of it. The movie's gritty, documentary-style look is a huge part of what makes it so effective. Hooper and cinematographer Daniel Pearl filmed the movie with a 16mm camera in the guerrilla style to mimic the raw, unpolished look, and with the grainy texture from the 16mm camera only enhances that realism. Hooper's use of long takes, tight close-ups, and handheld camera work put you right in the middle of the chaos. It's uncomfortable and disorientating, which is exactly what Hooper intended. He wanted the audience to feel trapped, just like the characters. The actors of this unforgettable horror endured some of the worst conditions ever on a film set. Marilyn Burns, who played Sally Hardesty, was such a rawness that the movie feels more like a documentary than a horror film. The amount of damage that Marilyn encountered while filming is among some of the legendary tales amongst horror movies. Burns was dragged, poked, hit with a rubber hammer with the numbers going into the double digits, chased through the woods where she ripped and cut her skin so much that most of the visible blood on herself in the movie is actually her own. The conditions on set were brutal, extreme heat, long hours, and a very limited budget. This real-life suffering of the cast and crew only added to the movie's authentic feel. You can practically feel the sweat and tension dripping off the screen. The other standout star of the movie was Gunnar Hansen, who portrays the horror icon Leatherface. Hansen was allowed to create and develop the Leatherface character as he saw fit, but with Tobe Hooper's supervision. Reading through the script, the Leatherface character did have actual lines, but they were lines of gibberish. Hooper would sit down with Hansen, telling him what the lines meant, so Hansen had to figure out a way to say these lines without actually saying them. So along with these lines of gibberish, Hansen decided that Leatherface was mentally handicapped and never learned to talk properly and was a child built in a grown man's body. Leatherface is not just another slasher villain, he is a complex character, a monstrous product of his environment with an almost childlike mentality. This added layers to the horror, making him not just terrifying, but also oddly pitiable. When the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released in 1974, it shocked audiences like nothing before. It was banned in several countries, and yet it quickly became a cult classic. The film's impact on the horror genre is undeniable. It paved the way for the slasher films of the late 70s and 80s, which include Halloween, Friday the 13th, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Along with The Last House on the Left, Chainsaw is widely considered one of the greatest and most controversial horror movies ever committed to film, and you can see its influence in nearly every single horror movie made after 1974. Over the decades, Leatherface has become one of the undisputed kings of horror. Without him, we wouldn't have the use of conventional tools as weapons, and also the image of the silent, hulking killer devoid of personality. Wes Craven, the director of possibly the most extreme horror movie of the 70s, The Last House on the Left, took inspiration for his next movie, The Hills of Eyes, as a homage to Chainsaw. Even the great Sir Ridley Scott said he wanted to make Alien as Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. We also cannot forget the influence this movie has had on the many horror directors of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, as a lot of the movies were trying to mimic the gritty look. In 1990, Tobe Hooper accepted the award for this movie entering the Horror Hall of Fame, and the movie became part of the permanent collection of New York City's Museum of Modern Art. But beyond just influencing other movies, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tapped into something primal. Its portrayal of violence, madness, and survival resonated deeply with viewers and challenged the boundaries of what horror could be. Even today, it remains a touchstone for filmmakers and fans alike. As with most horror movies from this era, sequels were made in the following decades. Some were good and fun, but some were just downright terrible. So why does the Texas Chainsaw Massacre still hold up after all these years? For me, it's the perfect blend of raw terror and groundbreaking filmmaking. It's a movie that makes you uncomfortable in the best possible way, leaving you thinking long after the credits roll. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of horror. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and what horror films you'd like to see me cover next. Until next time, stay critical, stay scared. You can catch our last retrospective on The Last House on the Left here.